From the kingdom of Tirasleen to the immemorial city, from movie theaters in 1988 and to Disney Plus over 30 years later, we are here at the season finale of Willow, John Kasdan's Willow on Disney Plus. What a ride it has been for these last 7 weeks across these 8 chapters. I am so excited to be here for the finale, Children of the Wyrm, and I did not come alone. Not only did I bring the Allagash to my Mad Mardigan, I brought I'll let them decide what character they're going to be, but I know for sure that one man is definitely Willow, and that is the returning Ken Napzok, a wizard that I've gone to bother to get him to come out and appear right at the end. How is everybody? Look at this crew. Chase, Hauser, that gay Jedi is here.
Hello.
I'm so fortunate to have this crew.
I'm very excited. Very excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Ken, my friend, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm going to let everyone know I'm only here for a little bit. I'm swinging through, but I'd promised to appear on the finale after reviewing and discussing episode 1 with you. I have a lot to say about this show and the lessons that were there for everyone, but particularly some for people like me who are a little bit of the, you used to call me Willow, that counts, but the Bormans of the group and the big realizations. Plus, I think I owe Nicky money, so I have to come here to pay him.
Yeah, well, you could just leave him in a cage for like a couple decades and you don't have to worry about him then.
It works out in the end.
You just pretend like you have one eye and we'll call it square at the end. Sacrifice yourself. It'd be a whole thing. But yeah, so we're here at the finale. It's really weird the way that these things keep creeping up on us. We did House of the Dragon. I was like, oh, that'll be 10 episodes. It'll feel like forever. Went by in a blink of an eye. Same thing happened with Rings of Power. Willow, I was like, oh, Willow, can't wait to have Willow for the entire fall, winter. And now it's 2023 and it's over. And it feels very weird, very surreal to say that a Willow sequel not only is coming, but is finished. A Willow sequel exists in its entirety. And Ken, for your segment up top, you had something that you wanted to say. This is the Ken, I called it the Willow State of the Union in our text chat. And I don't know what you're going to say. I theorize that you might just pull a Bilbo to cross franchises and disappear at this moment.
I'm looking for, I do have the engagement ring. I can,
there you go.
Yeah, we're not getting married, so I called it an engagement ring, but really it's just my ring of power. Here it is. I'll start here, and I really don't have a lot prepared. I just wanted to come back on. Number one, I said I would, but Alden, publicly thank you for taking the lead on the Willow show. You're working with me here on Casterly Talk, and doing Willow was always something I was like, yeah, that seems right, and we'll need to cover something there. And I've always loved the movie, and it has a special place in my heart, but it didn't stick with me. I always talked about being 12 at the time, which is a world of difference from seeing something at 7 first. For me, 1988 was baseball cards, discovering things about myself, which Joanne Whaley and Val Kilmer probably had some questions on that. And the movie was always good. And I love Warwick Davis. But I took a look at the first couple episodes, and I was like, okay, the vibe's different. They're making some choices. I don't know what I'm vibing with here. On some of the acting choices, some music choices, all that kind of stuff. And I knew that it wouldn't serve this show, our show here at Casterly Talk, to have me come on every week and just kind of be either half invested or not getting it. And that was the start. That's the logistics of it. Like, all right, Alden's here. Alden, you have done an amazing job bringing in wonderful folks. Like Kid, Nicky, it's been great to get to know you, from drunkenly accosting you and yelling at you probably at Star Wars Celebration to here. Folks like Chase, Maggie, Adam Collins, a lot of wonderful people coming on the show. And I love that, because I'm all about making sure that table is big and far and wide, and you've picked that up and run with it. But one of the things that happened for me is this show along the way, I apologize, Chase. You never really met me until now that I apologize for monologuing. Okay.
I love it. I love it. I'm getting to know you.
Getting to know
yes.
you. This show grew with me. The choices grew with me. The performances. Borman is my new ride or die. And I love it. And it all builds to this wonderful finale. And this wonderful moment for all the characters. They have it all through it, and it builds and builds and builds. And it's just epic fantasy, and there's lessons that go from big things down to small things that we take into our real world, which is why I'm always here to talk about it. But for me particularly, I want to address what I feel is going on. I'll say this as someone, the executive producer of this channel here, the Willow numbers are lower. We expected that. Not a shock. The Willow numbers are lower. but it is. You deal with that. You build it in the business plan. And I think a lot of people have been looking at the show on the surface. A lot of people have been analyzing the show on the surface. They've been doing their YouTube short videos. They're doing their media discussion world, of which I've been a part of for 10 years. But I've become more and more grumpy because I think people are missing a lot of the points. Immediately, I realized this show wasn't necessarily for me. And that is the point. And it's not just about me stepping aside and letting you come in. It's about finding my place in the story. It's that moment that Boorman has. I'll step on the discussion you're about to have. You'll have it great. But when he realizes this isn't my story, that's not why I'm here, I actually started to get weepy because it's valuable to just not only our stories, multi-generation stories. I'm big about entry points. When did you discover Star Wars? When did you discover Game of Thrones? Come on in here. What's your perspective? What's your upbringing? What's your identity? What's your struggles? What have you gone through that has brought you to here? Because I want to find out how this art engages with you. And there's so many people in the media discussion world, and I'm not calling out names, and I'm not being grumpy. They're just doing what we're doing. We all love this world. 10 years ago, I was with the Schmoes team and all that stuff. There's now 2 million shows alongside of us, as there should be. And I hope there's 3 million, 3 trillion, 3 billion. Get Musk numbers in here. Buddha him, get the numbers. Everyone has a way of looking at things, and it's your way to look at things. But we are talking about art. We're talking about art. This is what we have. Pop culture is our culture. It's what speaks to us. It's the morality tale. It's all those things we talk about when we discuss it. I see so many people come into the art channel and go, what show are they watching? All that stuff, what is that there? We're talking about themes, talking about lessons, but what we're doing is we're engaging with the art as it is intended to be and what it is presenting to not just you, but the person next to you. There's great value in this show about every one of these characters having their own individual journey and finding why they're there and finding what they're learning, finding what they can give to the other person, finding love, finding purpose. And for Boorman to have this one of, I realize this isn't my tale, was big for me as a commentator in this space because I see so many people out there, their hot takes and their hot tweets and their angry YouTube short videos, and they're dumping on Willow at times. And even John Caston, who's pretty plugged into the internet, has tweeted about, hey, maybe you're hate watching it. Great. Keep hate watching it. The numbers go up. I think it's a shame. I think people I love and respect who are overlooking this show because it's not necessarily supposed to speak to them. And I love that this show is speaking to who it needs to speak to. I think there's lessons for everybody, and it's become even more powerful for me to sit this and watch a show every week and go, if I was 14, this show would be my world. If I was 20, this show would be my world. Fuck, I'm 46, this show should be my world because it's got lessons for me. For me, it's the Boorman side of it. There's lessons in every one of these characters. Willow and his failure. It's powerful. It's powerful, but it engages in the way it wants to engage, right? It knows what it wants to do. It knows the choices it wants to play. It's got dire straits straight up at the end of the finale. Come on. No one's rocked to that since 1985 except for me. I love everything about it. I love the spirit. I love the vibe. I love the silliness. And I want that to be celebrated. I want what to be celebrated is what's there for the people that need it. And I want to push back against the gatekeeping out there. That's not intentional gatekeeping. There's people who are intentionally gatekeeping, right? Of course, we're going to see all that. But there's people who don't realize that when they're out there going, this sucked, the humor sucked, the music sucked, these kids sucked, everything about it sucked. You are opening the door to so many bad things to come on here. A lot of isms come in here when you start discussing a pop culture in that way, instead of finding out who this show is for. Because when you sit down with the people that it is for, and I'm sitting here with 3 beautiful people that the show is for, man, it becomes even more powerful. And I've enjoyed the ride of the show, and I've enjoyed the ride of being alongside the show. And you guys are killing it on your commentary, and I love it. And for anyone watching who thinks this old guy needs to go, I'm going to go. I got some dinner cooking, some frozen burritos. I love this show. It was a home run. Volume 1, give me Volume 2, give me Volume 3. John Kasdan's a character. He's not as quiet and reserved as his father. Larry has opinions on Solo and Tri-Tip. I've seen both in action. But John Kasdan knew what he wanted to do. The entire team, Dolman, Howard, all the writers, directors, the actors, performers, they knew what they wanted to do, and they nailed it. They nailed it. And it might not be for you, but that's the point. It's for someone else. Find that other person, find why it connects to them, and you might just start to build a better world. And rant, Alden. Thanks for having me.
Well, good night, everyone. I'm going to bed. That's all we needed. We get a golf clap, a theater snap. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, we have people here or people in our lineup, you know, like Adam, who's grew up on this movie, and Chase, you know, you're a recent, you know, you and Nicky both recently discovered it. But then look at the two of you, not like I'm speaking for you, but like we're going to talk about these things. Like we've got Borman, who is Lucasfilm and Disney's like first mega like Indian fantasy hero on this show. And then this is also the first straight up, not, you don't have to even Andor, which like had Valencinta, which we're not going to take away from the beauty of their roles. There was still executives have plausible deniability because there's a little bit of like, you can ignore it if you want to. This said, no, not only is it part of it, their relationship between Jade and Kit is essential. We have a literal, factual lesbian Disney princess suing up in the finale of a legacy sequel. These characters were able to speak to so many people. I mean, Erin Kellyman, having jumped from Star Wars to Marvel to now Willow, becoming a franchise like character actress, and for young Black girls to see her, like it's just this entire crew. Tony Revolori, who's like had these character parts for so long, and then to really have the journey of a side character who is like, no, I'll take the wand. Even if I go out, I'm going to take it. And define himself. It's just so much that matters. And I just echo everything that you said, Ken. I mean, that's why we do this. That's why you and I like work well together, is because we're like, when someone says, what show are we watching? We both have the attitude of the show you weren't paying attention to. That's the show we were watching. The show you were just looking at.
Engage with the art presented to you is what Joseph once said on Force Center. It's a driving ethos for us and for us here. So I'm going to roll. You guys do it. Chase, we'll meet in person one day.
I would love to see it.
I've admired your hair from afar because when I played baseball in '89, I had the same haircut.
Hell yeah.
Nikki, could you please give me back my 7-Eleven gift cards that I gave you? Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
Gotta find them.
Goodbye, my friend.
See you again.
Oh, what a guy.
There we go.
What a guy.
Smooth.
Setting the tone there.
I know. He really... I think he's gone. I don't think he's ever coming back.
He's Matt Mardiganing us.
He just retired. He just let us. Oh, does that mean that I'm Borman or Kit? Much pressure. I am so thrilled. Like I said, I had that intro. I was a little flustered. I'm coming off of a family thing. I'm running in here and everything. Proper introductions now for everybody. We have, of course, Nicky Kumar, my life partner, collaborator, and Hive Mind sharer from A Rewatch Between Worlds with me, Imperial Senate Pod, been here covering Willow throughout, and then, of course, from Pink Milk and their own channel on That Gay Jedi. So you get double the chase on the internet. Pink Milk, their live shows on Wednesdays. That Gay Jedi. Are you on you're like it seems like a once, twice a week almost?
Yeah, I try to go for once a week. Yeah. But I don't like to choose a day. Otherwise,
neither do I. I don't do that.
Mental health plummets.
Yeah, no, I don't. Scheduling episodes.
You podcasters are wild.
No, cannot. I make it when it feels right, or when I have the patience and the attention span to edit. But yeah, you were so high on my list of people to get on, not just because we've had great fantasy discussions before over in the Star Wars land, recently with Tales of the Jedi, with Brian and M over from Pink Milk as well. But just because I knew that you had fallen in love with this, and I knew that it was an important show and a show that was vibing with the way we 20-somethings, I think, all feel and are right now. This show feels like, you're also on Fear Queers, and you guys are doing your Buffy show right now, which is just making me so happy. This feels like it should have aired Friday nights after Buffy, or
that's what I've been hearing.
Whenever Buffy aired, I don't know, I can't remember. But it feels like, Smallville, Buffy, that entire era, X-Files, and then it wouldn't have looked as gorgeous, but it has that tone of like, if it was 1988 and we moved it up to their kids' age, the 20 years later, it belonged there. And it has that tone and it feels so right. And again, the representation has been beautiful and moving, and the characters have been delightful. So we've set the table a bunch, and we're talking specifically today about the finale. I know there's going to be a lot of like season talk as well, which is totally fine. This one directed by Jamie Childs, Raina McClendon, and Jonathan Kazan co-wrote it. We'll talk a little bit about the season, but we're going to try to keep it on this because there will be a stream that'll be the entire season later on. Real quick, I did it off air. I just want to do that real quick. For the benefit of the podcast listeners, it's an image of Kit Tantalos dual wielding her wrist blade and her father's sword while wearing magical armor. It's one of the greatest.
What else do you need?
When she threw that shit out of her sleeve, I yelped.
Like a freaking Gundam.
Yes.
I was not at all prepared for look, one of the greatest moments of my life is, if you guys can't tell, this is a really loose one already. We're just this vibes. If you're a person that's like, what are they going to score it? 10 out of 10, A+, whatever. One of the greatest moments of my life is Anakin dual wielding for 3 seconds in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
And this, I got that with Ruby Cruz in a magical techno chainmail armor. And it was.
I'm waiting for the lightsaber edit.
Oh, it's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Someone's got it. That
shot where evil Eric is about to come down on her and Jade throws the blade underneath, like all of that. Borman's moment where he charges in at the Gales, all that stuff is going to be like the fan edits, the fan cams, the fan dumb that has popped up around Willow has been so beautiful. So
yeah.
Starting with you, my friend, just where are you at right now besides like euphoria? Because I know you're just over the moon, overjoyed. We both love this thing, but why? What is it?
Yeah. I don't think I've experienced a piece of media that was like so hyper aware of what it was, unapologetic for what it was, and like it, and also just it doesn't bend to like what anyone wants or expects. And I just find that sort of an unapologetic artistry to be really compelling. And then on top of that, like in the story itself, I just find it to be such a healthy narrative of how to relate to other people and how to relate to yourself. Like, and it really kind of comes through a lot for me in the finale. One thing that I really got from the finale, and I looked back at the season, I'm like, oh, there was a lot of that in there, is like this idea of Willow being like, during this, like right before the final battle, he's like, I have to go home to Mims. I have to go home to my daughter. And then like a couple scenes later, he's back on the fighting field. And he's like, actually, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I trust that I trust that my daughter understands that. Like, we all have relationships, but we also have like things that we have to do while we're here. And there's things that we have to like lived experiences we have to like work through. So I just thought that was like a really small example of sort of the relationship game throughout the whole show. There's a lot of really, really beautiful boundaries set throughout the show between characters. There's a lot of beautiful like self-relationship exploration, especially with Elora, who's just like my queen. I mean, my queen. Like when we'll get there, but like during that wedding, that scary fake wedding, and she's like, no, I didn't. She's like, you don't get to make any decision for me. You know, I am who I am, like all that kind of stuff. I think that's where I'm sitting in the immediate Willow afterglow, is just sort of this idea of health for yourself and health with other people, and what that can bring about, which is a really magical thing.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said. I love that. The thesis that you have there of health for yourself and for the well-being of others, and how those two things have to be in sync. That you can't serve your friends and loved ones if you don't serve yourself. Like, you have to take care of yourself to take care of others. Yeah. Would Jade have been able to have the strength to make that leap of faith if she did not have the breakthroughs in Wildwood with Scorpia and learning about herself? Would she be able to be the best knight, girlfriend, person? We don't, would Borman have been able to face anything that he faces if it wasn't for everyone? It's sometimes in mean ways, but also in earnest ways. And, if not for bonding experiences like talking to Graydon about women, if it wasn't for Willow saying nobody's buying it, Borman, Mad Mardigan would have been proud of you, which he doesn't even let him fully say. But that's as far as he'll get at this point, which is, there's still more journey. Would Kit be able to become the wearer and wielder of the Chimerian cuirass, if she couldn't accept, well, I'm not the right princess, I'm also finding out I'm not the right knight, I've been handed a lot of my victories, I'm maybe not the one, but you are. That there's this mythic thing happening that I love, that I've talked about with a few things this year that I think have touched, or this past calendar year. It's a new year, everyone. Of like, in great examples, like in like Thor: Love and Thunder. There's this wonderful theme that I love of like, meet your heroes, yes, but also become them. Like it wasn't about, I'm not gonna find dad and he's gonna fix it. Like maybe she thought at some point, maybe she hoped. It wasn't about stories that you made up about why you left to hold on to bitterness from the pilot all the way to the end. She has to become him. By the end, she's wielding the thing he was looking for, protecting the baby he protected, holding the sword he held.
Yes.
Like, you actually have to live up to them. It's yours now. And Willow has that. Every character does. It's just a beautifully assembled cast, and I'll throw it over to you, Nicky, on the note of this cast and everything, not just to tee you up to talk about Ruby, although yes, please. But like, even the bit players, the small roles, the creature actors, or the one episode performers like Hannah Waddingham, or like the gentleman who plays Silas, my goodness, in those first few episodes, and Ralph Ineson, like just everybody that just was peppered throughout, getting Rule back for that scene. That was a poignant scene about aging. What is it like having been, and for both of you, I'm not claiming to have been a lifelong fan. I liked it, but it was, for both of you specifically, this has been a breakneck, like zero knowledge to all the knowledge in like 2 months, watching the movie and then getting into the show. You have all these characters to love now. How do you feel now that it's finished?
That's very loaded. I think Chase used the word a few times that I thought about as well with Willow, and that's unapologetic. And I think that is maybe one of the great sort of legacies of what this season of TV is. And I think, just the ability to say, this is who we are. We're not going to be something else. We're definitely not going to try to be House of the Dragon. We're definitely not going to try to be Rings of Power. Like all great fantasies, and they can all occupy different branches and pathways. And Willow found its own, and just went for it. And I think that, for me, when I think about the kind of stuff I want to do, I want to write, I want to create, and I think that feels more. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's very empowering for an artist, I think, to sort of find something that is saying, you know what, just be you and just do it, because that is where you're going to find your best stuff. And so I think just from a, like, what do I do now with my free time when I open up Final Draft, it's a lot less crying at an empty page. It's oh, let me just dig what I feel. Like, let me find it, just put it, see what it looks like. And I think that is a really, like, epic thing that Willow gave me in particular, just in these past couple of weeks or few weeks. And then just as an appreciator of Lucasfilm and the industry and all that, I think, just to circle around to your point about the cast, like, I can't remember the last time. It was probably Game of Thrones season 1, where like I didn't know anyone, or like I knew Sean Bean, but like, I didn't know many of the big faces, the young generation. And I was like, I can't remember, probably since then, ever feeling like so connected to a new cast. And people they just plucked from things. Like, obviously you knew Aaron from Star Wars and Marvel and Green Knight, and but even then she wasn't really ever like the hefty character, leading through scenes and stuff.
It wasn't about her.
Yeah, right. Like she had great moments, but she wasn't so like central. And then I mean, just all of them, Tony Ravioli, like we always say, he's just that dude from Spider-Man, and then Ruby Cruz, who we talked amongst ourselves, possibly the most important late recast since Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah. It's insane that she was not the first choice, which is no disrespect to anyone that was. Scheduling things happen, life happens. There's tons of people that didn't get it. Daenerys Targaryen was a recast.
Yeah,
she might actually be in that third one in that group.
The third head of the dragon.
Yeah, the third head of that dragon.
But no, because she is so. Just the character of Kit is so vital, right? And it's like, and when you know that she was late in the process, they had other people, and it's like, how was it anyone else? And yeah, it's something that, again, as a writer, as a creator, like, I'm very excited to see a young generation of actors that I think, oh man, what if I get to write for them? And it's like all that kind of thing. It's been a very like empowering season of television for me, and I think that is probably like the greatest gift Willow could have given.
It's very empowering. I mean,
it just feels good.
You feel like you can run through a wall. I know. I feel very selfish about it now, and so upset, and I'm already thinking of ways of like, how can I get my Willow fix? Are they going to do a comic? Are they going to do, which I hope that they, it's Lucasfilm. And that's the other thing, is that this is a company that we love, but not because of anything bad, because of massive success of one of their things, became known as the We Do That thing. And sometimes we do Indiana Jones. And, we revisit him once in a blue moon. But for them to say, hey, wait a second, we have faith in this thing. And, we've got a lingering conversation of Nepo babies in Hollywood. Yeah, okay, fine. But if they are gonna be there, I would like it if they took swings and to go back to you, Chase, like John Kasdan coming in without his father this time, and Solo they did together. Now he comes in and does an approach that, like Ken said, is not going to land for everybody, nor should it. I don't believe in the idea that art should be for everyone. Sometimes it's for its people. You come from and are still in the theater world and the world of performing arts and everything. How did you feel, before we move into the specifics of this finale, about the specificity and the anachronistic qualities and sometimes we're going to say boobs, and we're going to have the big monster say bitch, and we're going to talk about girlfriends, and we're going to talk about this, and like everything that we're going to have denim jackets, like all of those choices, production wise and acting wise, very modern delivery, no thys and thous, very, probably an even split between American accents and European accents.
Yes.
How did that all play for you? Especially because you've been on a fantasy kick, so it stands contrary to your recent Lord of the Rings journey too.
Right. Yeah, and that's been a really interesting thing, because I'm like, and now my friend Theo, he's like, you got to watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, Theo, yes, I will. I absolutely will.
But it's also that's not the vibe to follow this way.
Yeah, get a little bit of breathing space there.
I was like, I definitely need to like just sit in this like delicious warm cup of coffee for a little bit more before I move to like whatever that's going to be. But okay, I find that when I watched Willow, the movie, I watched it about a month before the show, and I was so weirded out by it and charmed by it at the same time. And I was weirded out by it partly because it was just like, there would just be weird little moments where I'm like, that was like, I would laugh, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be like laughing. Like, I don't know if that's intentionally funny or not. And this show, and then on top of that, I found it to be a very grounded story, but with very fantastical plot. And so what I think all of that transitioned so beautifully into the show, because it again has that energy of like, it's awkward. There's an awkward charm to it that is self-aware. And I think it's like, it's self-knowing in its awkward charm. I think those little moments are ingenious, and some jokes are like very sophisticated and very smart, and some of them are like just like a boob joke, like it's just a basic pre-K boob joke, or not pre-K, I hope not pre-K, yes, but
middle school boobs.
So I found it to translate really, really well from watching the movie and being like, what is this? I like it, but I'm like confused, to this show being like, okay, I really like this. And I'm still like the perfect amount of confused. Do you know what I mean? By certain like certain little jokes. But that is just that isn't to say that it's all that, because there's also like really, really smart humor. When I was watching the episode and the trolls, and sorry, I don't know the name of the episode. But when Graydon is talking about like, well, Laura's saying we're going to cut down all the trolls, and Graydon's like, well, we're not talking about like their confidence. And then I was like, what is he talking about? But then the punchline of Borman being like, well, I really just kind of like cut down their pizzazz. Like, it's so fun. It's so smart. Like, that's like smart to me. I find that to be really refreshing. And it's not like, I love Marvel, but it's not like a Marvel joke. It's not a Marvel joke. Like, it's a very different kind of humor that
it's willing to lose people. It's almost like, like there's the overarching blockbuster humor of the modern era. There's the Marvel brand of, which, you know, is very Spider-Man. Like he's the bedrock of Marvel comedy for a reason. It's relatable. Everyone should get it. But then there are the people like Taika and James Gunn who are willing to lose you for a joke. Like they're like, this joke is not going to be for everybody. Not everyone's going to laugh at, you know, some of the stuff in Ragnarok about like the devil's anus and things like that. Not everybody's gonna laugh. The hammer pulled you off. Like, things like that. Not everyone's gonna laugh at those things. And same with Guardians of the Galaxy. Like people are gonna find some of those characters to be unlikable or hard to access. Same with like Peacemaker, things like that. And Kasdan, you know, he's got this whole writing staff, of course, it's television, so it's different, but what they've managed to tap into, I think, is that right balance. Like there are jokes where it's like everyone will laugh at that. Like I think, you know, Borman's a great example of having a lot of it, the whole spectrum. He's got jokes like, I'm gonna leave this world the same way I came in, butt naked and kicking ass. Like everybody could laugh at that. But then there are the ones that are more like you're saying, like confidence and pizzazz being equated to violence, and we just do that joke, and if you don't get it, you don't get it, and if you do, you do.
Or it's just like an awkward scene.
And if you do think it's funny, if you don't, it's a show that's not afraid to do that with comedy, and it's not afraid to do it with plot and storyline and magic as well, like with its own lore. I consider it to be a hallmark of George Lucas. When you look at all three of the main creations, it's like, well, how does the Force work? It works the way the script needs it to work. But how does the Ark of the Covenant? It works the way the script needs it to work. And the same way, where there are things that are brought up here that just are. And they, you know, Warwick Davis has a lot of moments where he just has to confidently say, like, oh, we wanted the flute to be magic now. Oh, well, sometimes, you know, meaningful objects can be magical.
Conduits,
cool. I believe that. Like, yeah, it could be conduits. Awesome. Second to last episode, and there's a new magical. Okay, cool. Like, you're either on board or you're not, and the show's not going to wait for you to be on board.
And also,
we're having fun.
Yeah, and on top of that, the characters themselves in the world don't even understand the lore. It's incredible. Like when Kit is like, well, like this is gonna happen if, like, you know, the Wyrm's just trying to work through the crone to get to the thing, and like what's gonna happen? And then like Laura's like the Harbinger. She's like, oh yeah, the Harbinger. It's like,
the back to back. Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Just so the sisters sharing a brain.
And it's true, because it's like it is the kind of thing where you're like, okay, so Bavmorda was this level. She was actually the level 3 villain under the crone, and the crone serves the Wyrm. But then to the side of all that is the blood of the Six, and that's why they targeted Bavmorda. And you could get into the whole like branching of evil and how evil works together, and it's you know, it gets more complicated than like, oh, there's Palpatine and there's Vader. Like it's more in the, if you took it very seriously, if there was no humor, it would be sort of Tolkien-esque of like, there's layers here, and an eldritch god and some bloodline and some other city. Is that true? Is that not true? How much of what the crone, as Lily says, is actual backstory versus lies? And the show says, maybe you'll find out, maybe you won't. It's not, it tells a complete story. But like I was saying to you, Nicky, off air, and I'll throw it to you for this, like, it very confidently, like, yes, it calls its shot at the end with the books. It's Kasdan saying it's done, book closed, but also we could go on if you let us. But there are things that in our modern culture of like, I need everything explained now. I need all the answers now. There's no resolution for Willow and Sorsha. There's no reconciliation.
Right.
There's no return home that's left. That's the next adventure. You get Borman, you get those self-aware moments, like earlier Borman saying you get one cry per quest. Then at the end, he's like, you're gonna have to earn your way to adventuring with us. We're like he's now taking ownership of the kids around him. It's interesting to see it sort of have the sort of like savviness to be like, that's not something we need to really carry forward right now. Like, what actually happened with Willow, and where was he when his wife needed him? All we get is that he wasn't around, and then his son left him. Like, that's all you need for the gut, for the heart at this time.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, just to bring attention to that final shot again, I think it's it is throwing the gauntlet down to the people writing the checks, but I think it is also a very savvy business decision too, on the writer's part, by saying, give us 2 more and we got this.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one thing for it to be like, I think to try and sell a story where it's like, and we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this, and it just keeps going nebulous, versus 3 volumes. That's it. We can do this. It's here. Back us for it. We'll give you the best product possible. And I think that is that confidence in where you're going, what you're going to do. I think that will help sort of shift what needs to be shifted to get this thing renewed, announced, pushed forward. So I think, first of all, that, and then, like to your point, when you are able to say we only need a volume 2 and a volume 3, then that's when you can spread out those things, those, the where's Willow's son, all that. What was his name again? I forget.
It's Kaya, Mims, and
I can only know Kaya.
Why did I forget the son? Well, it's because you're not in the show.
No,
son.
he left.
It's because you left Willow. And I don't remember your name.
Yeah, maybe don't leave your dad.
Yeah. So like, I think again, like it is the thing where it's not even just we'll save it for later. It's they probably have a specific spot in where it's gonna be, and it's like I think just the pure notion of being able to say we know beginning to end, and that's now it balls in your court. I think that is what gives me confidence in the fact of like all those little things that we didn't get more answers on. I mean, there's a whole lot to unpack with the Bone Reavers and Jade and what Tyrazine does.
That's what I want the comic book to be.
Something like that. Like, what is her choice? I mean, there was the whole like, when this is over, I might want to live here. Would you want to like? There's a lot of Graydon. We never found out what possessed him, and I think in something else. And why he was a target for that, and what his father knows and doesn't know, the political play for Tyrazine, like
why was their name not that good anyway?
Like were they the slavers because it gives Galadorn, like there's a lot going on that is left open, but because the show is fearless enough to be like, well, this is what we're doing right now. It's the Crone battle. And
and these base relationship, right?
Yes,
and
this is like
all that.
Establishing a party, a D&D party, or a fellowship, which they even say in the show. It's like Jade says before she does her leap of faith, like a war's coming, which is almost Jade saying like, yeah, we've got other storylines, but if we don't stop that particular witch right now, then the rest is moot. And so it had a lot of just relentlessly confident. But moving specifically more into the nitty-gritty of this episode, in terms of the setup, what Jamie Childs directed here, and I'm not going to say it's straightforward, like there's not a lot happening, but in terms of A to B, it is storm the evil lair, magic battle, sword fight. It's your classics. It's the hits. It's play the hits. yeah, exactly. Kill the witch, save the prince. Or they even say in episode 7, Elora with her badass face, she's like, I'm going to kill that witch. Like that's it. But we're going to take character by character because I feel like that's worked out the best for this show. Sometimes It's hard to do that. It's hard to do that in House of the Dragon because of all the politicking and everything and how intimate some of the scenes are. It was a little easier to do it in Rings because everything was separated. We have elves, we have dwarves. But this one, because it's one party and there is no splitting up and nothing, but everybody has their journeys. It's like we have a nice set of stories to talk about. So let's start with the man himself, Willow, who, Warwick Davis from the get was very clear about the fact that Mark Hamill in Last Jedi was a big inspiration for him. They did not do what a lot of people thought they would do, the easy thing to do, much like with Luke, which would have been, it's 20 years later, Willow is super powerful. He's not. The entire time he's been battling insecurity. He's admitted under the influence of truth plums, and then later on not his failures, how he feels like a fraud. They use the ending of the first film, which was endearing for that film, to, he won with a trick. Now it's like, you won with a trick. And what does that mean later? It's great in the moment, but what does it mean later? Now we have him making the choice, and he's trying to invoke his daughter's name as an out, but it was his daughter that told him, you need to go. And so it's like realizing that he's caught himself in a corner and that he has to make a choice. So how did you feel about the way that Willow's arc came to a head at the end? Chase, we'll start with you.
I really loved it. Like I spoke earlier about sort of like the health of having a relationship with someone and being there for someone, but also kind of doing what you were destined to do and doing what you have to do. But I mean, the whole show, I loved this idea of, he like won on a trick, but as I guess from an audience perspective, I left Willow the movie being like, okay, so like, anyone can be a hero as long as they have the courage to be themselves, like that type of thing. He leaned into what made him him, and he did the pig trick and it saved the day. And then it's just so funny because it's like, it just does a really wonderful job of like all the younger characters for the most part have to learn, like, if the first movie is like, just be yourself and you can be a hero. And the show is more like, well, who are you? How do you find yourself? And then Willow as a character kind of has to like rediscover a huge lesson that I felt like he learned in the movie, which was just be yourself and do what you can. But it's so honestly very raw and vulnerable and real of a character in this show, because in my opinion, it really speaks to sort of this macabre reality of like, you get older and you don't even all the time feel older, and like you will always still like want the same things or similar things. Like Willow always wants to be a hero. He always wants to be a great sorcerer. And he's also having to, and it's just part of growing up, and you have to reconcile with like, well, what can I do? And like, what am I actually like just holding myself back on? But let's also try to be realistic, but also try to be aspirational. Like it's like a really delicate thing. And it's really easy to like slip down a million different not positive slopes with that. And so with him in this season and the conclusion of his arc, I was really, really happy. I think his bigger arc is more like going back to like winning by being himself and also becoming a great sorcerer, because he is just now really working hard to get there. I think his imposter syndrome that he felt over the years is clear. Like, when he's with his family and he's with the with, I don't know, do we have like a name for where he lives?
I guess just like a Nelwyn village. I don't know if there's
yes. Yeah, but like, he's not really like training to be a great sorcerer. No. He's faking it. And so
he just adopted the same stuff that
he
watched.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's his bigger arc. But what I loved about the finale, like where he landed in this season, is he landed on not worrying and just sort of trusting other people, which he hadn't done since Mad Mardigan left, like since he hadn't done since Sorsha out of pocket girl was like, you will never be a great sorcerer. And like, she had a point, like to an extent, like we can't bank on that, Willow. Like there's like a huge threat coming, but like, that's not how you handle that. And like, yes, he can be a great sorcerer, and yes, he can help a lot, and we'll also work together in all these other ways to stop the evil. But anyway, I liked where he landed just in terms of, wow, he just can relax a little bit. He can trust other people. He can have these relationships. And, it's expertly demonstrated in the castle episode in Nockmar when he's like, same as I did last time with my friends. It's a cheesy line, but it's like, I mean, that's important for him. And that's where I think he settled in a really nice way in the finale.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's the idea of Willow realizing Willow functionally is it's like if someone adapted Lord of the Rings and they called it Samwise. Like he is the sidekick to guys like Mad Mardigan,
Yeah.
to women like Sorsha, to heroes like Kit and Borman, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And but he's also our lead, but now he's our legacy player. So it's even yes, it's the Luke Skywalker of it all, the or the Rocky Balboa of it all, or the Maverick of it all, whoever, like Batman and many takes. Like I have something left. I have something unfinished. It's eating at me. Like I didn't come to peace. But then you add and I was kind of a side character, not taken seriously anyway.
Yeah.
Like even in my own movie, even my own story, I did a little trick, and everyone patted me on the head and sent me home. And for that to fester in certain ways, it was, I think, really compelling. And for him to show up at the wedding, at the fake wedding, with that, slam the step down moment, do the big spell, for him to, like you said, to not worry, really is the energy. From when he comes back, he's like, I'm in your head, dummy. I gotta kill these blokes. Like it's almost like Willow who would banter with Mad Mardigan, with Val Kilmer, like that Warwick was back in the end.
Yeah.
And when Jade's like, should we go back and try to kill the Wyrm? And he's like, they'll be fine. We pissed it off, but we'll like Willow sort of has like swag by the end.
Yes.
He's like not questioning things. He's like, I'll smash my staff and use my crystal and just trust yourself. Like, it's like how Willow got his groove back in a certain way, which
definitely
is a really interesting way to take it. Because you're right, like Sorsha's been getting a lot of heat from fans, like, why did she act the way that she did? But it's like, you got to keep in mind, from her perspective, she's got the Leia Luke legacy.
It's
like
hard.
It's hard. And it's not just my parent was evil, it's I was. I was complicit until the third act of that first story. So there's a general for evil.
Yeah. And you also like throw into the mix that she's not like a sorceress. Like, so she also but she also has like her mom's blood. Like there's just like so much, like there's so much intensity around that. And she's also just trying to be a queen, which really I don't think she really had like a good blueprint for how to be a queen. So there's a lot with impending
it was
doom.
awful. Yeah. So
and her Nicky, husband left. I mean, like
on her orders. And
exactly.
She broke the family to try to get away from the truths that Willow was preaching, which was like she needs to be trained. And so that's a good point, Nicky, for you to jump in on. Like, Willow is affirmed in the end. She did need to be trained, but like all good stories, it could not be in the way that anyone said it would be.
Yeah. And I think that's what is so great about Willow's story in this. Like, the way that Willow, or this season of Willow and The Last Jedi, are like companion pieces is like endlessly fascinating to me. Because I think that the scene that it really hit me with Willow was when he tells Kevin Pollak to get in the bag. He's like, come on, we're going. And he's like, no, we're done. I'm done. Like, I did my thing. And like, that is the lesson, right, for these sort of legacy heroes, where it's like, it's not actually your responsibility anymore to lead the way. Like, that's not on you anymore. And I think that was sort of, a big thing for Willow to learn, and to be in that place of, I kept seeing this vision of Elora, and that's gonna happen. Nothing ever changes it. No matter what happens, it always ends the same way. And like, again, that the way that sort of digs into his psyche and how it implants and is just the way he then proceeds through life. And like, again, we talk about Luke and Last Jedi. Luke goes to Ahch-To, stays on the island. Like, Willow basically takes all his people to the island, right? And he's like, okay, we're all going. We're all hiding underground. Lock the doors, right? Someone can poke their head up top if someone pops by. But like, just the way it's such a like mirrored character journey for Willow and Luke in terms of your fears, your insecurities, holding you back and stopping you from learning what you need to learn, which is to support these young people who need you. And so, yeah, I think like for me, it really synthesized at the when he gets into Elora's head. I was like, tears coming. I was like, you know, and it's like, and you know, he's like, you know, I'll whatever, like I forget the exact dialogue, but it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it ends with like, you know, I'll be there with you.
Yeah,
and it's
wherever
like,
the adventure goes, or wherever the adventure takes us.
Yeah. And so I think for that to be like where he lands, again, you think back to the early episodes and how crotchety he was, trying to teach her the spells and, you know, doing it my way or whatever. And he lets go of that. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to be here for you. You're not going to, you know, it's not about what I am. I'm here for you.
Yep. And on top of that, like we see him in episode 3, I think, or he's like worried about how much magic he has left. He's like, I can't use all this magic. Final episode, he's smashing his staff to help Kit save her brother. I mean, and it's just like, grab this and do whatever you have to do. Like, I mean, that was just awesome to see in the similar way.
Yeah. It's a huge motif of letting go. And to your point, like the idea of training a certain way, it has to get entirely abandoned by the unlikely wizard apprentice from the first movie. Like he has to allow these kids to be the kid that he was. And he doesn't have Mad Mardigan because of circumstance. He doesn't have Sorsha because of circumstance. He reaches out to Rule says no. Razel is dead. Shalindria is gone. Like it's like he is having that realization of, oh, it can't be the first adventure. It literally can't be. And so I have to empower these kids in their own way. And we get the breaking of the staff. We get Shalindria's wand being snapped in half. Like there's all these Elora's hair journey and the symbolism there of the, you know, her big spell, and Skellen finally blows the rest of the hair dye away. Like all the stuff that's been laid out about who you are, who you aren't, how you get to decide that. Willow became a great sorcerer by the end because he finally decided that he was. And all it takes is sometimes saying like, yeah, I am. I will do it because I have to do it because I said I could. A lot of people, interestingly enough, like were already in name the thing that they became, but they had yet to fill. It's like having a pot and having not filled it with any ingredients. Like already this, you know, swordswoman, princess, badass, everything, but what about that? Graydon was already this magical scholar when we met him, but what about that? Borman was already the squire of the sidekick of the greatest hero, but what about that? Everybody, Jade starts the show by being the first woman ever inducted into the Shining Legion. She is a great knight already, but what about that? It was like fill those things with meaning. Titles and roles don't mean anything unless you make them mean something. And Willow defines a great sorcerer for himself in ways that were not like Shalindria or like anybody else. It was just, I'm gonna, you know, I'm in your head, dummy. Like I'm here. Like it goes back. Like he paid off by saying, no matter where it goes, I'll always be with you. Is going all the way back to finding this baby in the river, and saying, do you have love for this child? Like Mims telling him, like, you know, you have to go. Because that was the bit, like Mims is excited to see her. Mims had it right. Like, I'm the one that found you in the river. You were so small and you were a big baby. That all finally solidifies now. And he's like, oh, I'm still protecting the baby. And Mad Mardigan was protecting the baby, which is the perfect way to segue into both twins. Eric hasn't had a lot of shine because he was more of a supporting role. But we have both twins here, both, you know, they have the sibling duel and everything, but, you know, we talked about it a little bit up top with this idea of becoming your heroes, that Kit has been living in fear that her dad didn't choose her, which beautifully comes to a head with that monologue in episode 6. And also with the, can I be like him now that I'm forced to be on a journey unexpectedly with the baby that became their focus. And that we're both, you know, these young women, and we're having these journeys, and we're looking for the same guy, but for different reasons. And it's all this stuff that binds them. And she realizes that she is the one, as Borman tells her. As Ken so beautifully talked about, Borman realizes he's not the main character, even though he was Mad Mardigan's boy. He's the actual squire, carrying his swords, presumably, tending to his needs, like learning at the feet of this legend. Kit is the one that actually gets to use this magical weapon, which I love thematically. Just on the note of the Chimerian Cuirass, I talked about it with you, Nicky, off air. We're told the legend of the Cuirass, it was created by a parent to protect their kid. That's why it exists.
Yeah.
In Chimeria, thousands of years ago, whatever, that mom that made it for that prince, like it was made for parents to protect children. And so the fact that he wasn't even there, but we get his voice, Jack Kilmer playing his dad, for her to be able to like actually wield his sword, actually wear what he was looking for, and fulfill what he was going to do, but still in her way. It's, she doesn't just like, it's not like, oh, you're as good as he is. No, you're not the best Mad Mardigan. You're the best Kit. And that's what he would have wanted you to be. And Allagash realized that. Borman realized that. And now Willow realized that. And now she has to realize it too. Willow says before the leaps of faith, like, maybe it's just her, like Mad Mardigan, kind of knew this. It was a beautiful way for it to come to a head. And then, of course, the direction and the action blocking and all the gravy on top of the ideas is Ruby Cruz. I mean, like, it's like, what is there to say? I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look at
no
it.
fears.
Nailed it.
Absolutely absurd. So Nicky, jump in about this breakout character of our souls.
Like I think I have too many thoughts about Kit Tantalos, so
Fair.
I'm gonna try and just pull a folder out and see what happens. I thought the greatest thing, or not the greatest thing, but the most challenging thing that ended up being the greatest thing for her in this episode was that her test was Sorsha. And I think that was a very clever and mean move because it sort of goes back to the root of her insecurity and who her disappointment in her life, and you take it back and you put her against the mother who expects this of her, is planning her wedding, is tells her she's not being enough of the princess she needs to be, and then to have the forbidden fruit then being the mother saying it's fine, you can have it all the way you want it. And then Jade's there and she's like, oh man, I can have everything. And this idea of taking back all the way to Kit's original I want dialogue, right? I want this, I want this, I want this, and to offer it all up and to be Sorsha doing it, I thought was the only way to like really give her final test for this. And so big shout out to the team for actually doing that. And then for Kit to then have the strength of character to be to be not fooled by it, to have Mad Mardigan come in and deliver that just really amazing scene with them together.
And again, the confidence, like the show's not like, oh, he's doing it like this is where he is. It doesn't matter. Like it's just about ideas at that point.
Yeah, and even like again, like it has that sort of specificity of language where she's like, but I'm not you, and he's like, yeah, you're not. It's just like, and the way that lands is like very modern and
it's also very Mad Mardigan too.
Right,
like it's very Mad Mardigan too.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then you're better. And so I think just to have that little chunk of time for that to be her temptation, I think was really powerful. And then she comes through it, and she's ready to be the hero. I love it. What does he say? Like, you're her shield, you're her sword, or something. Like it just unlocks all that epic fantasy vibes that are swirling around Kit. And then she goes and does it. And
she has to face, facing Eric, I think is so important, because he becomes, not only does he almost become his grandmother and mother in succumbing, but Kit is able to not only battle their legacy but redeem it by purifying him. and he, she became Mad Mardigan, and he almost became beginning of the movie Sorsha, an agent of evil. And much like Mad Mardigan turned their mom to good, she's able to turn their blood to good, turn their history to good. She faced that painting of Babmorda, her grandma, in Nockmar, and it looked like her for that split second. And there's that movement that happens, and Eric falls, but it's not an indictment of his character. It's not like he's weak. It's just that he was, the road to hell, good intentions, all that classic stuff. Like he was trapped for an intentionally magically ambiguous amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
These torturous walks through the desert that never ended. Like he was just trying to, make a better world at that point when all hope seemed lost. And he falls, and their duel is it's just so emotionally charged, that battle. I mean, both phases of it, when it's her and Jade, but then when it's just sibling versus sibling and the second blade comes out. I talked about it a little bit top. She's got the sword that he wielded when he became a hero, when he made a better choice, and then the sword that is evidently built into the Chimerian cuirass. Like it's now, it's legacy, it's newness, it's parents and their children, it's families, and then she's willing, it seems, or she will force herself to be willing to off him if she needs to.
Yeah.
Because that was the commitment of her father and of Willow and everybody. But it takes Elora, and we'll segue into her now. It takes Elora to say, "Oh, but we both know that it's love," and it's amazing to see everybody, not for bad reasons. It makes sense. They had been still thinking of Elora in magical baby terms for forever, for the last 20 years. She was a kitchen maid who didn't know who she was, so we could still think of her like a thing to protect. And suddenly the baby is now a grown woman talking and is like, I have a say, and we both know it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
The protection is great, and she appreciates it. And it's not like she's shrugging Kit off and saying, I don't appreciate what your dad and Willow and Sorsha did for me. It's not that. But it's her saying, there's another way around, which is kind of what Willow does. There's always another way around. It doesn't have to be the way that prophecies say. And even when the prophecies are right, it doesn't come about in the ways that people think.
Yeah.
The details are fuzzy. Sorsha turned on her mom, but it was also the love of it all and stuff. So with Elora, because we could spend forever talking about Kit and Eric, and I do want to sort of get to everybody, because I know we have Chase for like another 20, 25, 20-ish.
Yeah.
The stuff with Elora is so powerful, because her entire arc from the get was, not only does she not know she's Elora Danan, even the name she's being referred to isn't even the right fake name. She has a incorrect fake name.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even Dove, it's Brunhilde, which she's never called, which is the name she grew up with. She's had her hair dyed since she was 5, and she's had all of these things, like, to protect her, sure, but then what have you done? You've stunted her growth. You've taken away agency. And it's a classic thing. We hid the Skywalker twins. These are things that George is very interested in. These very, like, Moses-esque, Superman-esque tropes. I say Superman-esque, he is Moses. But like those ideas are so prevalent. But to now have her as a young woman have these very powerful breakthroughs, but also these very modern moments. You have the sorceress, was a Semprum Empress, like, of the 9 realms, like, coming to the forefront at the same time that you have a 21-year-old woman say, I don't think I'm into you anymore. Those breakthroughs happen at the same time. You have a breakthrough that is so high fantasy, and then a breakthrough that's just every rom-com. At the same time, and her arc is placed so beautifully, and it's so contradictory. Like, she is a goddess and can do it without Shalindria's wand by the end, and is blocking things with her forearm, and is doing the green lightning and the crackle.
When she shoots it out of her face?
Out of her face, yes.
Out of her face, when she doesn't have her hands anymore, she just goes, and like headbutts it back. Are you kidding?
It's amazing. But then she's also, like, the whole show, she likes to cook. She wears a jean jacket. She's like, she she's everything
Forever
and
Miss
also
Muffins.
relatable, but also Miss Muffin still.
Yeah.
It's an incredible way to go with it because, again, not a lesser show, but an easier show. It would have been 20 years later, she's Gandalf, you know, and
Yes.
it would have been easy. So, Chase, how did you feel about where we got her and her test, which comes down to I don't really want to date you, Eric?
Y'all, I cried during that wedding. I like cried, and like it was such a I don't know. It's just so funny because I would never like if you told me like what was gonna happen on paper, I'd be like, oh, it sounds like a cool moment, but like not emotional. But it was like, oh my god, because I don't. I mean, maybe it's embarrassing or not, but like it is like deeply, deeply like such a sad but moving and tragic like sequence because it's like this haunting like beautiful cover. That's not all the needle drops worked for me, but that one really worked for me. And it was just sort of like, you know, she's looking at her friends. It's just like, let me gather my thoughts. To me, Elora Danan is very relatable in that she has such like a so sorry. I'm like trying to think of the word. I want to like get the right word. I guess I'll just say like she's just such a storm of feelings and emotions and thought about herself. And it's because of like what you talked about, sort of like as a kid, like getting a lot of it kind of like wiped out of her and kind of a lot of force, like kind of putting her over here and like people making decisions for her, taking away her agency. And then growing up and wanting to be all these other things. I mean, she literally is dressed like Disney's Cinderella in the first episode. Like she's dressed like Cinderella. And she talks about wanting one day, she's like, yeah, I wanted to be a princess when they're on the Shattered Sea. And she's talking to Kit. And she's like, I kind of wanted that to be me. And so you get this feeling that she grew up wanting these big things. And then she's told that she's these things. And she's like confused. Then first she's confused. Then she's like kind of into it. She's like, okay, this is kind of a sleigh. It's kind of like everything I've always wanted. And then she's like, then it's just like the turmoil of like, okay, well, what does that come with? What does that mean? And everything.
People die for her.
Yeah, and like those amazing lesbian farmers in the woods, like they were like, we're ready to enlist. And then she watches one of them dies, and the blood is on her hands. Even Eric during the ceremony, like before it was when he's like tempting her. It's like when he's tempting her with like making everything better. It's like yeah, you don't have to be a Lorna Danan, and you don't have to like, you know, and like you don't have to worry about all the people who died for you. And I'm like, damn, I'm like, it's so like he says it so casually and it's so good, but it's like so weighted. And so I just like really relate to her sort of like that that energy, that like sort of like chaotic and desperate energy to sort of like, it's just noisy, you know what I mean? And that's what I like so much about her release through her powers, is like that is the release of the scent, like that needed to happen. This poor girl has sort of like been trying to navigate all these things with so many outside forces working against her, and also her working against herself, and also like three versions of herself. There's like the her that she thought she was, the her that she's told she is, and the her that she has yet to discover, and the her she, you know what I mean? There's so many versions of her inside that little head. So not little head, but you know what I mean? Like we all have little heads, okay? And in my little head, it gets confusing sometimes. And
relatively to a lot of other life, yes.
Yeah.
You ever see an elephant, people? But you're right. I mean, like like that. I love that you made that note about the Eric temptation, because there are things that are happening for the characters, and then there are things that are happening for the viewers that you can have fun with and add to your sort of buffet of analysis. And it's like Eric is saying that Eric is named after a man that died for her.
Yes.
Like Eric is named, like the Tantalos twins are born because of the battle for her.
Yeah.
Like the quest to keep her safe created their family. Brought their parents together. They meet because it's the same way of like, you know, now we have even greater reason, but even before the Obi-Wan show, people would say, why did Han name his kid Ben? He never really liked Obi-Wan. And it's like, yeah, but they're together because of Obi-Wan. So, and that gets deepened, of course, but it's like everything that hangs over, like when Kit has that moment of like, why every time he could have chosen me, he chose you, paraphrasing. It's also, Laura's a little bit older than the two of you, and you exist because of her, and she's reckoning with how she's affected them in different ways and how she's affected the entire realm. And so the storm that you're talking about, I think is the perfect word that you chose, because it does take, I mean, like, I don't want to send us down the Harry Potter rabbit hole, especially in light of, you know, the worlds. But like the idea of breaking the wand is like an iconic moment there, and wandless magic being sort of the peak of like of power in that world of like that's for the real gangsters of magic. For her to get to that point, obviously it's a different mythology, but the symbolism of I am gonna let it all out. It's gonna come out of every limb. It's not even a straight beam. They're gonna crackle and turn, and it's gonna be all of these things, and I'm gonna be making it up as I go along, sort of in the same way that Willow was.
It reminded me a lot of, what are you the god of again? You know?
Yeah.
Like
yes.
That's the thing. Like, you are the conduit. You don't need. I think it's very, very like powerful.
Oh yeah,
for Elora.
That's a great call. That Thor moment. I think a lot of people love Ragnarok because of that. Like, it's like Odin tells him, like, are you Thor, the god of hammers? Like, it's like, no, you're not. Like, that was Shalindria's wand, and it helped Willow, and it helped you. But Elora Danan was prophesized to be the greatest, period. It wasn't the greatest if she did things a certain way. It wasn't the greatest if she had X items from other people. She got something passed down to her that served its purpose. She got, you know, a life that was not great. I mean, she was in servitude, but like she had love and was treated well. But by the end, she's got a magical item that she chooses. She takes Graydon's flute, and it's like that feels right. And they don't know that he's still alive, but that feels like I'll be Elora Danan. Like, I want to see her in the next season casting spells out of Graydon's flute and just doing bananas stuff that we've never seen.
And yeah, I gotta say too, another point, like in relationship to Graydon, I think that it is really wild to watch sort of the disconnect that she has from her passion throughout her whole arc. And in this episode, like that whole moment with the crone, it's like you see like this guy he puts his whole thing into it, you know what I mean? Like he is passionate behind what he's doing.
I could feel that he wanted to hurt me.
Yes. Oh my god, it's so good, because Elora, she's still caught up in her head. She's had to live in her head, especially as of the identity crisis that is realizing that you're Elora Danan, like, and what that comes with. She is completely disassociated and disconnected, like her head from her heart. You know what I mean? And it isn't until Graydon is thrown out and, you know, presumed dead that she really is like, okay, whoa, you know what I mean? Like that really kind of like there's no way she could ever like hold back the passion and sort of like have that disconnect, which is like it's a safety mechanism, and it's a safety mechanism that I relate to, and it's very easy to just sort of cut yourself off. But she's like, oh, you know, that is sort of like I just like that that's like one of this sort of the mini battles she has to overcome to kick his ass.
And I love that, and I love that it was the crone is using it as a dig. And is, you know, it's very classic George of like sort of like a given to your hate type moment.
Yeah.
But she's miscalculating or misjudging what Graydon's doing. Graydon, she's taking it as like I could feel his hurt, but what it really is talking about his, you know, we're pretty smoothly transitioning in and out of these characters. I like this. With Graydon, it's like his quest is very much like something that I love, like from like John Hughes movies, things like that, like Cameron and Ferris Bueller, like. He's afraid of his dad, and he's like, I'm going to take a stand. Like, I'm finally going to take a stand. And you had all the book knowledge that you retreated into because of trauma.
Yeah.
But now you've owned the trauma. You've literally had it exercised out of you twice now in your life. And here you are, you're going to grab Shalindria's wand. You're not the chosen one. And so this shows so much about how we are all support for each other. Everyone in the crew is someone else's support system or multiple people's support system, or has or gets multiple support systems feeding back into them. He's not chosen. He's just a guy. For some reason, life has given him the worst deck of cards so far, and he stands. And if I think for Elora, she's feeding off of his support there, because if he can do it with none of the destiny, then if I applied myself the way that he has and the way that he has treated her, if she could channel her own Graydon and stand, then she will win. And I think that's what I like about him confessing his feelings for her and saying, I'm not even asking you to, to feel the same way. Like he humbly took his L and accepted his friend role with no bitterness and was just like not a toxic man about it and was just very straight up and chill. And I think that he in a lot of ways got to be part of the Elora Danon legend by sort of waking her up a little bit when she needed it. And they'll find out, I'm sure, that he's not dead, but as it stands, his sacrifice binds the group together. I mean, you get a moment of like horrific shock from Borman's point of view.
Yeah.
Who's been avoiding these types of things because of losing friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really poignant to see Graydon have that and just really go hard. And also the symbolism too of like, this is an all ages show. And so there are little things that I love. Same way with Star Wars, where it's like, there are things I like because I understand them with like the AP lit brain. But then there are things where I'm like, I like that a child will watch this and be like, Graydon has purple magic and no one else has purple. Like,
yeah,
that's for the little ones. That works. That's just that's visual language. Nicky, Tony Ravioli, what do you got? Why do we already miss him?
Because it hurts to lose him, and I think that's what is so powerful about. A, thankfully he's not dead, but B, the fact that he's functionally dead to them is great, and it's a great way to end the season in that they leave with a really bloody nose. They won, but it hurt, and I think, with the little sort of epilogue-y type thing where we see him and we know he's in a weird place, not a pleasant place, but I think it's almost like his death is, it's so important for the rest of the little questing crew, and it's proof that you're gonna go. What does Borman say? He's like, we're all gonna die, and it's proof that you don't just go out into the world and you all come home. Like that's not how it works. So I think for them it'll be really interesting. Should we get to our much anticipated season 2 premiere, it'll be really interesting to see how they are processing the fact that they lost someone. And I think that's gonna be really sad. And then also it'll be fun when Tony Ravioli gets to reveal himself back to them and be like, I mean, guys, look, I think he's like one of the perfect actors to deliver that kind of scene.
He is like, it'll be such an anti-beat. He is perfect at the anti-delivery. That one you brought up about cutting their confidence, or
favorite.
The way that he talks about when they shave his beard, and then he's like, but I thought that you said that women like beards, women like a clean shaven. What about him? And he's like, well, he doesn't have a girlfriend. He's like, oh, like
I also loved his I wish someone told me, I'm really afraid of dying.
Or just like his emotional intuition with Kenneth of like, that's something the show just like does and not leaves, but it's just like they just gave that creature an arc because it shows Graydon, like Graydon's been used and abused his entire life by demons, by his father, and then he saw that this creature was running out of gas and he said, I'm not doing it, I'd rather walk.
And it paints him to be a really powerful sorcerer, you know what I mean? Because they talk about communing with animals, so it was also like cool to see on that end too. It's just he fulfilled his potential, and now I have to say, on a personal note, I saw Dark Elora or Wyrm Elora or whatever we're gonna call her, and Graydon's living my dreams now. Absolutely,
he's living like, it might be a nightmare in lore, but leading the armies of hell in a metal album cover with Ellie Bamber in that costume is,
and her short hair, like that haircut works. I also have to say it was giving like Sirius Galadriel, like Hallbrand Sauron vibes for me. Just like that whole thing, just like
her little speech.
Like her whole speech and like the join me type of thing.
At my side.
Yes, it was that. It just really fed the Rings of Power fan in me too.
But I just love that, like, in Star Wars, most of the times the join me's don't work. In Lord of the Rings, it didn't work. I love that Graydon's gonna be like,
hell yeah,
sounds good.
Where do I get my black outfit?
Oh, cool. I'll let the hair down. All right, let's. Like it's yeah, I'm so excited to see how that works, because this is in the way that like Spider-Man is young people, in the way that, as you're finding out now, Buffy is everything in Buffy. Every monster, every spirit, every ghoul is a metaphor. Everything that happens is a metaphor. There are things that happen in Buffy, I won't spoil them for you, but like that's like, oh, it's about when a young person goes through this. It's about when a clique of friends goes through this. And this might be, you know, Graydon's like, okay, you found all your skills, but now you got to have the with great power lesson.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be where his arc goes. We got a couple more people to talk about. There was no perfect segue out of demonic Elora, because I just want to live there. But we have also two of our biggest badasses, if not the two biggest badasses. Nicky, I'll throw it to you. Where are we going to go? Are we going to go Borman or are we going to go Jade? I will happily go either. We're going to do them both. But just
Thraxis, Relaxis, Borman.
Thraxis, Relaxis. I mean, yeah. What Ken said about him saying it's not my story. There was a really funny tweet today that was like Borman being relatable. Like he'd rather jump off a waterfall than
feel any emotion.
Than feel his emotion. He's like, too late, Mike. Like just Amar's performance. This man needs to book every part.
Dude, he's a gem, man. I don't know where they got him from, and I feel bad because I'm sure he's done, whatever he's done. I'm sure it's been great.
Yeah,
but like. Yeah, they just plucked this gem out of nowhere.
I've said it before, but outside of one shock trooper character in The Mandalorian, they have nary a miss in, like, from Star Wars Rebels all the way to Willow. The young talent that they've plucked out of nowhere has just been unreal. Like, I mean,
as good a Rolodex as you'll see in the industry.
It's insane. Like the fact that you could say like, oh yeah, we've got like Daisy Ridley and we've got like Aaron Kellerman and now we've got this whole cast and John Boyega, and it's ridiculous. Borman's arc, Nicky, where do you want to go? I mean, Ken covered so much of it so beautifully, but from your point of view, it wasn't like it was shocks and twists. Like it was what you expected, but it's the execution that really made it sing.
Yeah, and I think it's the combination of all his stuff. Mostly, probably, I'd track it back to like the slaughtered lamb episode, and just like when you're able to like piece those little things together of, oh, he hid the Lux away, he hid the motives, and he didn't know the truth about Mad Mardigan. Him and Allagash were all, saying, it was you. And so I think when you're just sort of tracking it all and like seeing it all come together, and it really culminates with him trying the Curus and not working. And that I think is a very powerful beat to have done in the previous episode, so that you can then, because again, there's a lot to cover. Everyone's here in the same place, a lot to cover. Not everyone's going to get time to do our stuff. So it's very wise to get that out of the way so that we can now jump into this episode where he's ready to give it away and acknowledge his place, and it's not, he's not who he thought he was, but who he is someone better. And I think that's so cool. And again, Ken said all that at the beginning really well, and it's what's such a powerful thing about the character. And then for me also, as someone whose last name is Kumar, it's really wonderful to have a brown Indian actor, brown skin, there on screen doing awesome stuff in a fantasy world. It is so cool. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, you don't often know how cool it is until you get it. Yeah. Because that was me, like, growing up. I was like, oh, you know what? I can relate to any character. I don't need them to look like me. Like, if I connect to the journey, then that's the cool thing. And then I saw a few people who kind of looked like me, and I was like, oh, this is so cool.
Like, forget other characters.
Right. Yeah,
I was gaslit.
Yeah. Right. But it's a powerful thing. And when you can do it all and combine it all, that's when you're making magic on screen. And Omar was just incredible.
He's just
Incredible
so
casting.
eternally likable. Like
Yeah.
his
Yes.
delivery is like, we talked about the mixture of modern and fantasy. Like him and Warwick probably have the biggest like carry the fantasy load of like just dumping exposition out. He has to tell the legend story. He has to drop a lot of the stuff about Mad Mardigan. He has to do a lot of like keeping the threads going, especially being the one that knew Mad Mardigan and Sorcerer back in the day when he was young. He was the squire. But he's able to imbue it with such heart. And like what I love about him having that moment of realizing that he could be the better version is that like he was a squire, he was there to serve, and Sorcerer even sets it up in the first episode. He'll do it because of a debt. And if Kit realizes that she has to become her father and even the better version of her father, Borman becoming the better version of Mad Mardigan's squire is putting the magical protection on his daughter, like closing the loop. Like whatever happened, him and Allagash can't even agree on what happened, but we lost Mads in some way. We lost him. He's out there somewhere, but we lost him, and he blames himself for that. And so the only way he can close the loop is like, now it's his kid. I'm protecting her. This is what your dad was looking for. I'm going to be the delivery mechanism for your family. Like there's a lot of like something that Maggie pointed out when we were talking about Prisoners of Skellen is the stuff with the found sisterhood that between Kit and Elora. And there's a siblinghood here as well of like, he's sort of Mad Mardigan's other kid, and he's an older brother. And for him to be like, I've redeemed myself now in my duties by being the support for the support. Like this show, I think tells kids there's no shame in being a sidekick. Like there's no shame in being a Sam, or there's no shame in being a Robin or a C3PO or whoever you're going to be. Like those are all valid roles. Like I think what makes this crew work is that none of them really have main character energy until the very, very end, when
until they need to do something.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's sorry, you go ahead, Nikki.
I think that's just like the really powerful thing about the quest group being there to support each other. And like we talked before, the fellowship breaks, right? In Lord of the Rings, the other great fantasy quest, like the fellowship breaks and they become different branches of stories, to finish off that big thing. And this, they stay together, and you are allowed to be that support character. And it's not like take the back seat in a like derogatory way. It's just like, it's just as important to prop up and support, because people need it.
They literally, I was going to say that I do think that is part of the reason why some people don't really know how to experience the show. And I don't mean that in the way that they're ignorant, but I just mean in a way that it is unique, and it is sort of like confusing. Do you know what I mean?
Audiences get trained. Yeah,
exactly. That's what, yes, exactly. And this is like a new thing. It's just it's a show that's like, I always say this. It is like so perfectly like nostalgic, and it's way ahead of its time at the same time. Like it just really kind of is that juxtaposition. And I think with the thing about the supporting characters and supporting each other and everything is, and I'm not trying to segue at all, but it is going to happen to, but because is Jade's line about sort of like, it's like, well, Willow's like, well, Kit is Elora's protector. And then she's like, well, who protects Kit? You know what I mean? And then it's like, well, then who protects Jade? Like, it's just like, we're all protecting each other. And it's like, Willow had, Mad Mardigan was there protecting Elora too, but he was also protecting Willow. Do you know what I mean? It's like, everyone's just kind of like protecting each other. And it just,
and what did Willow give him but a purpose? Like, his arc solidifies when Mad Mardigan never served a kingdom, and he says, I served the Nelwyn.
Right.
Like,
right.
I like, it's a feedback loop, right? Like what I give you is not necessarily what I get from you, or vice versa, but both are necessary. And for those listening to the podcast, I'm doing a lot of hands, I'm doing a lot of pointing. I really do suggest the video version, because you're missing out on me throwing up the Ruby Cruz image, and also hands. You're right. I mean, it's the themes of servitude and the themes of support are so important, because it also raises the question for all the characters, and we will segue into Jade with this, is, wrapping up Borman and then segueing into her. Borman's a great example. You thought finding magical artifact would equal I feel better, but what you found was your ex-girlfriend, and you got to rekindle love and slow dance with her, and you got to see Mad Mardigan's kids be okay, and you got to get out of jail. You got some surface level wins and some really deep personal wins, and you got to make peace with Allagash.
You got to kill 3 Gales.
You got to kill 3 Gales and come out. I hope he gets to see his mom.
By being himself without the magical object too, which was significant.
Yeah.
And when he says he's like I'm by being naked and kicking butt, it's like it's funny, but it's also like, well, he is like naked in a lot of ways. It's the most vulnerable he is. He risks himself for friends, which he hasn't done in a long time. He allows himself to go to places like, oh, I do give a shit about these people. I do love them. Yeah. He gives away the thing that he's wanted his whole life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it really, he's naked in a lot of ways.
Before we leave him, I just want to say that it's one of my favorite script choices to not show him fight them and just have him come out, be a little shook, and be like, I want my mom.
It's fantastic.
It's one of those amazing, like, your imagination will always be better than anything that they could have shown you. So yeah, just it's like, whatever that means to you, it could be, he could take him down in a funny way, it could have been heinous, like it could have been
the ability to leave it up to the, because they've shown, like, we spent 7 episodes establishing that he is a capable badass, and then
has like one of the coolest swords.
And it's fantastic.
That is incredible.
I just want all the merch, but like, me too. The way that it flips, and it's like, okay, we've shown you all that, but then we showed you his heart, so you get no action. Like, now you don't need it.
Yeah,
we're gonna get it over here with Kit, and you're gonna get it over here with Jade and with Eric, but it's about something else. And with Jade, she was ahead of the curve in a lot of ways, because she was the closest to knowing who she was. I think at the outset, she knew she was a protector, and she got tested early. She had to kill her adoptive father, in Ballantyne, and the person who was giving her a certain validity. And she had the pressure of Sorsha's mission, which then gets added context. We find out that their friendship and love, which became real, started as more of an assignment. And then her backstory. So she's been tested and changed and flipped, and like, Jade got the whole Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song, like, life flipped upside down by the end of this. But she comes out of it not different, but enriched. It's like highlight and underlined. And we talked about it in text. Like, one of my favorite beats of any show and forever is when the Lux Arcana is working and the armor is activating, and they just cut to her face. And it's the most pure, like, that's my girlfriend. Like, it's the most pure, just loving, awestruck thing. Yeah. And that's like, it's both a perfect romance arc, a perfect arc of servitude and loyalty, but also really taking charge. And the fact that her leap of faith was alone. Great follows her, but it was willing to be alone. That question of who supports her and how that goes around. I feel almost as if Kit and Jade, not to reduce them as I'm not at all saying that they are, just a female version of something else, but if you ever wondered, like, what did Frodo and Sam have, like, a something, like, this is the modern fantasy that's like, what if they did, and what if it was YA, and what if it was these 2 women, and what if it was a woman of color, and what if it was all of these things, and then but again, to leave things open, like, we don't see the show end with the high beat. It's not like we get back to Tirith Lane and she puts on an armor like Ballantyne and suddenly she's in charge. It ends with her just eyeing her girlfriend like,
and then
we did it,
and it's like so great, because it's like damn, like, she looks hot in that armor, but then like it's just like, I don't know how to take it off. Like, it's so Willow. It's so Willow. There's just so many little moments like that where I'm like, oh, that's like, I wish I could just be like, watch it with people and we could all just go, that's Willow. That's Willow. That's Willow. Just little beats are so good.
There needs to be
way that
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love the way in just these characters are always so like paradoxical with themselves, because it's like Elora, we have her starting kind of ditzy and then being, you know, the savior of the universe, and you know, Kit is the confident princess who has every insecurity you could ever imagine, and Jade is the greatest knight ever, who's just like a squishy marshmallow underneath, right? Like just the way they all exist. And I think she's really sort of fascinating going forward. Again, we already mentioned like with the Bone Reaver stuff, but even within the season, she doesn't seem to have much in terms of like resentment to Sorsha or Tirazline. Like she still kind of seemed like, I'm down to serve. I love that Jade's love language is service. Like it's great. And I think, yeah, that's a really like interesting thing about her. It's something I hope we get to unpack further. And yeah, just see where she goes with all that.
Yeah, and the fact that the two of them, they even have a line about it at the end of Wildwood, like, my dad killed your dad. Like they're both born of evil, but it's an evil that wasn't inherently evil, which we find out for both Bavmorda and Kale, that the Bone Reavers come from slavery, and that Bavmorda once had potential and was turned by the crone. And the two of them together as heroes, as young women, as lovers, as friends and knights and royals and everything, is able to, they're purifying things together, and they're figuring things out. And you don't get the answers of, are we gonna live at my house or your house? Are we gonna go to or spend the Christmas at Wildwood and then New Year's Eve at Tirazline? Like there's nothing like that yet. They haven't gotten to that stage of figuring it out, but we're there. It's like their arc sort of has these key beats, and then, you know, them in episode 7 when Kit, who is a dominant personality, to keep it very PG. There are certain choices in the direction and the acting and the placement of the actresses.
Yeah.
We'll just say, and you know, vertically and horizontally, and, you know, the axes that tell you a lot. They're making breakthroughs consistently throughout the entire thing. And when they fought in the season, when they disagreed, when they were angry at each other, both sides were always reasonable. It was never like some schlocky or TV where it's like someone is an ass because they need to be so we can have a fight. It just felt natural. And I loved it. And I loved where we left her and where we left all these characters. Did we talk about everybody already?
We talked about basically everyone in the crew. I just have to say, I can't wait to see what Scorpia is up to and how she managed in Skellen, because
what happened?
I
want to see that. Yes, love that you brought that up. I'm fascinated by that. I'm really excited to see, not like I expect, because it's very much like a sweeping landscapes type fantasy and like weird magical planes. Like maybe there's a city, like who knows? But Memorial City was once one city, I guess. So maybe there are more, but like
a little bit like, was it Chimeria?
or Kashmir.
Yeah. Like I'm excited to see, like, we got a little taste of it with, like, as you said, the lesbian farmers in the woods that, you know, Hannah Waddingham and like who out there is now going to be affected on our way home? Who else will we meet? Who else will we influence and change now that we're a party? Team Willow is now born. He's not going home alone this time on his horse and, you know, to his family. Things are different, but it's good that they're different. And now that Eric's in the party, how is he going to be his own man now that he's had his like mythic shedding of the long hair? Like he's been corrupted and purified and all that. Like it's like all of the staples. He's sort of had his season of Willow sort of smashed into these last couple. And then I also just want to give a shout out to Isabel Laurenti Sellers as
Rosabelle.
Isabel's no one. Maybe, you know, I'm thinking, oh, you know why I said that? Isabel Rossellini.
There we go.
That's what it is. Rosabelle Laurenti Sellers, Tien San from Game of Thrones, here as the crone / Lily.
Incredible.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments was I love when stuff does this. It's like he
Yeah.
thought he was making out with Rosabelle, and then everyone else sees it as
Yes.
making out with the crone.
Oh,
Yes. And Kit's just like, oof, like her
Yeah.
face is so good.
Like, we're not having this.
Yep.
it's
Yep.
yeah. I like that they went there though, because that's a Willow choice. Is
Mhm.
the supreme weirdness of like, yeah, that happened. Like it's like the pigs at the end of the first Willow.
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
just
it's gross.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yes.
it's gross. It's weird.
Gross, it's uncomfortable, it's disturbing. But then there are also like the theatrics of the crone's like, yeah, I'm gonna look hot as hell. This is my big day too. I'm gonna have a red dress at this wedding. Like, I'm officiating the wedding and I'm gonna look sexy. Like, I've been building to this. Like, this is a plan, the long laid plan. It contextualizes the plot of the first movie as the first
Yeah.
attempt at this same plan
Mhm.
that did not work. And now it's even harder for the crone. So the crone is going to react even harder because now it's not a baby that you're dealing with. It's a full grown ass wizard woman. So it's a great villain to introduce, but still with the promise of more. The action, the directing, I mean, the costumes,
The effects, the CGI.
it
They
looks
just
so
went
good.
for it.
It's
like,
so
good.
vibrant.
The crone was like dripping goo.
Yeah.
Like, and you
Mhm.
can
When
see
her
it in
eye
her
pops,
cheek.
the eye
Yes.
pops. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was like, woo.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
it wasn't like like I can't. Obviously, if you're on social media and you follow any of the cast, you can see how much fun they had.
Mhm.
But it's like I just can't. Still, even with all that, I can't imagine how much fun it was to have made the
Right?
show. Even
Yeah.
from like the VFX artists who were like, oh yeah, let's do that. Like,
yeah.
you
Keep
know,
the nose ring on the crone.
yeah. It's
Yes.
just like it's so cool. It's such a joy, and like I like just watching this episode at 3 a.m. I'm like, and like and the like late night delirium I think also fed into it, but it was just like, oh my god, what am I watching? And like and then at the end, after I think I sent Alden a voice memo of probably just high-pitched wheezing, I think is what it was.
Love that.
But
it was.
But yeah, it's just like, man, what a epic sticking of the landing. Like,
Mhm.
100%.
shows don't always do that.
No.
Nope.
And so it's bigness. It's one of my favorite things that stories do. And Kenobi got pretty big because it was basically a saga movie disguised as a show in a good way. But like Andor does this, like bigness through smallness, smallness through bigness. Like Andor is 12 episodes of a build that ends up in a street fight. That's it. And no one dies. It's just none of the leads. I should not say no one. People die, but it was just a street fight. The episode's called Rick's Road. And and this episode, it's called Children of the Wyrm. And that has a lot of meanings. It's the actual legacy. The crone could be considered a child of the Wyrm. Bev Morda, the blood of the Six. Like there's all these meanings to that. The actual children facing it that are the Wyrm trying to be the dominating force in their lives. But it being about the children is about the kids finding a better way. It's that classic, the kids are all right theme. And you get bigness, like this prophesized armor and everything, and this dual sword. Her armor's even kind of like glowing. It's sending off little energy bursts as she goes, and the green light, and she's just going to town, all the spins and everything. And then you get the double sword cross, and it's like boom, killing blow time, full Anakin for a second, but then smallness. Then it's just, hey, remember playing?
Strips it all away.
Yeah. And then Willow says, if you reach out and he's in there, he'll listen. He'll come to you. And then it's just these two child actors just playing. It's just we were kids. The fact that we had good times is enough to push us through, which is such a small idea for a brother and sister to have.
World-ending stakes.
Yeah, the world-ending stakes defeated just by siblings being like, "I love you. I've always loved you." There was never any, even when he was an idiot, they loved each other. They were never bitter siblings, and they were never. It's not like Luke and Leia, because that was a mystery to them. They grew up the Tantalos twins, and it's just by saying, "No, like we all have sisters." I just realized this, and like I freaking love my sister. Like,
it
that's
definitely pulled on the siblings.
It's just like it's that moment of like, I would never. I would absolutely use a crystal to try to reach you. You
Yeah.
like a zombie. Yeah, it was really pure and powerful. So we could be here all night, and we're going to talk about the season in depth and sprawling and audience questions and all that stuff. And every guest that can make it will make it. Maybe even some people that did not pop on during the season and maybe wanted to that we tried to get. Molly Damon. Molly Damon loved the show. She's just very busy. Star Wars Explained. I don't know if you know, they do a lot of stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun when we cover the season, and we're going to continue to cover it. And hopefully there's more Willow stuff down the road as well. Give us books, give us games.
Please.
Watch Hot Toys. Watch Nicky that Kit action figure that they're selling on that one website.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Chase, did you see the action figure line?
No.
I'll text it to you. They're like old school. They're like vintage. It's really cool.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, I have seen those. Those, but it doesn't have
be a few months away.
It doesn't have everyone, but it has the Scourge randomly. Shout out to Jonas. Shout out to Jonas. Stay employed, my man.
I did go on Shop Disney and I bought the Bavmorda and the General Kale.
There we go.
Oh, cool. And you have Cylindria's wand literally behind you. You don't have to grab it. But for people that are watching on video, I don't want you to have to undo your shelves. I know that's a pain. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see it out there, and we're very excited. So, Chase, any last thoughts before we close?
Honestly, I just have to say one of my favorite lines, because I just say it all the time now. It's not in this episode, but it's the Skellen one, the troll episode really is the episode for me. I think it's one of the strongest episodes. But just like the part where like Kit turns around because they're like trying to sneak out with what's his name?
Oh, Allagash?
Characters, Allagash.
Yeah.
Also, when it's like I'm like Carol Allagash's little boy, brave little boy, or something is so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, no, but it's like she turns around and she has like the mace, and Willow literally just goes, "Nearly got a mace to the face." Like that's it's like so random. It is so random, and he just goes, "Oh, nearly got a mace to the face." It's so fucking good. It's so good.
That had to be an improv line, right?
It had
that's so him. Like it's so Warwick.
The Warwick lines that are absolutely like on the day little things are so fun to pick out.
Yep. So that's my final thought. Is nearly got a mace to the face. I think it's brilliant.
That's the vibe of the season.
It totally is.
Yep. Love that. Nicky, how about you? What are you thinking about this finale? And knowing, of course, that we'll talk about it much more. But final word.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just like it was one of those really epic experiences. It's something like watching House of the Dragon, watching Rings of Power. It's like my favorite bands released a new album, and Willow was like, I found a new band.
Yes,
and they had the sound I needed.
Yes,
like, at this point. So yeah, I think that's like the overall takeaway for this season, this finale. All 8 episodes were absolute bangers. Like that's another impressive feat. Like, you know, in the age of internet complaining about filler, you know, it is nice to be able to say, well, how about this? You know, we got the full season. Everything was just packed and brilliant. And so, I'm looking forward to doing the overall conversation. But I think, Willow was the thing I had no idea I needed.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Agree completely.
Right there with both of you. Mace to the Face, the new rock album. I mean, I love my other fantasy worlds. I love Star Wars, Rings, Ice Fire. I love all of it, and it's many tones. But it's been, a really trying few years for everybody. This is basically just the 3rd year of 2020. Time isn't real anymore, and everybody's depressed.
We're in the Immemorial City.
We're in the Immemorial City. We just keep walking and getting back.
Some people resorted to drinking the orange goo. The liquid evil.
We know who you are, the goo drinker. Tweet me and I'll tell you whether I think you would have had the goo. I'll be honest. I'll be like, nah, you're a goo drinker. I'm sorry. But to have this show come along and say, here's an 80s fantasy made by way of it was a child of the 80s paying beautiful homage to a work that influenced him and homages to his father. There's Empire Strikes Back. There's Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like there's Young Guns 2, as Ken pointed out. Like there's all this stuff in here. And then, he's a young guy in the 90s. They're doing it like a 2000s show, but with the modern sensibilities. colorful, it's pop punk, it's sexy, it's queer, it's awkward, it's just left of center at all times. It's very on the nose. It's throwing, it's sometimes we'll throw a classic rock song your way, like Money for Nothing. Sometimes we'll throw it, but it'll be a cover. Sometimes we'll do a slow dance. Sometimes it'll be at the beginning of the episode, we'll do an opening, like a cold open. Like every time I had an opportunity to make a choice, it just made it. It was made very, very fearlessly, and with so much love. And I think that this is going to be a show that, and I mean this in the best way, will become comfort food. I could see myself for my annual breakdown, whenever that is, tends to be end of the year. I'm gonna be like sad, and then I'm gonna be folding my laundry with Willow on in the background. I know it'll be one of those shows. Like, I want noise in the house. I want to hear my characters talk. It'll be that, and it's great. And I can't wait to talk about it some more with all of you and with our friends and many more people down the road. So for right now, Chase, starting with you, there's a lot that you're doing. You're on 3 different channels. You've got multiple shows across these channels. You're a video essayist, you're a commentator, you're a Star Wars pundit, you're a horror person, you're a theater person, you're like a model. I'm sick of you. Never mind. Go away. I'm sick of you having all these things. No, I'm kidding. Titles. You're a cosplayer. What don't you do? Why don't you just leave something for other people? But please plug away.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I've never gotten called a pundit before, so I feel very honored. And coming from you, that means a lot. And thank you so much. Honestly, I have to say thank you to both of you. It's like so invigorating to be able to come talk about Willow with people who like get the vibe and people who love it, because I know people who like it on all different levels, and some people it's not for them. But so thank you both for everything tonight. It's been like so energizing. You can find me on YouTube, That Gay Jedi on YouTube, on Twitter and socials, aka That Gay Jedi. Also Pink Milk podcast and the podcast called Fear Queers.
Oh, you did that so succinctly.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. I'm just drone on at the end. Nicky, what do you do? Who are you?
Man, I'm trying to figure that out. But yeah, you can follow my random musings at Niquicious, NAQUICIOUS on Twitter. You can check out the Imperial Senate podcast at Imp Senate Pod. For Star Wars stuff, you can check out the One and Done Film Club at the letter N Done Show, which I do with Alden here. And then also on Alden's baby Octa Radio, we do a rewatch Between Worlds, which is a beautiful, thrilling, epic episode by episode rewatch of Star Wars Rebels.
Yes, yeah. Rewatch Between Worlds, Octa Radio, Star Wars podcast. Ramping up. It's always, I hate January. I really do. I've got an episode that I've been editing for like a week, and it should not take that long. I'll edit like 5 minutes and be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But Octa Radio, Star Wars podcast still going on. High Republic interviews coming out. Taking it a little bit slow as we move into 2023, but excited for what's going to come up with Mandalorian, with other things going on. Obviously, Casterly Talk. I'm here with Ken Napzok every week in some form, live shows, recorded discussions like this one, and mixture of things. We're going to be continuing Lord of the Rings, continuing Game of Thrones in different ways. Yes, you might be thinking, oh, well, now all the shows are out of season, and you are correct. And we will figure it out.
Scrambling.
We're going to be talking about the Lord of the Rings movies. We're going to be talking about some of the games. We're going to be revisiting different things. Hell, maybe we'll pick up some of those now not canon Willow books that came out and see what happened in those and figure out if there's
full
anything
cast
that
readings.
Might come. Full cast. Look, I'm
book
saying,
club,
and look,
Casterly Book Club.
I'm not going to play my hand and call any shots here on air, but I like to do a one-on-one interview. I like to sit down with people, and I don't like to just do it about Star Wars. So that's what I can say about that. There are things in the works to bring people on. Gonna aim big. I mean, if Ryan Johnson showed up for something, right? Then maybe some other people will.
Yep.
And then at that Alden Diaz, THATALDEN DIAZ, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Hive. Follow me or don't. This has been Casterly Talk, the Willow discussions. My goodness, it's over. Chapter 8. We're going to close the book. We'll see you again in Volume 2.
Good night.